Welcome everyone to Vivo 5G Talk. My name is Rakesh Tamrakar, and I am a leading specialist at Vivo Communications Research Institute. In today's event, we will explore the state of 5G in Asia and its potential to transform and improve society. We are fortunate to have with us 6 industry experts who will share their thoughts about the fascinating world of mobile communications and 5G technology in the region. Let me briefly introduce our guest speakers. First, we have Neeraj Bhusal. Neeraj is an IT professional who has proudly served the government of Nepal since 2013. Throughout his career, he has worked on several fascinating projects, including Digital Nepal Framework, Nagrik App, and Cabinet Automation System, just to name a few. Second, we have Muhammad Adil Israr, the Chief Technology and Enterprise Business Officer of Ncell Axiata in Nepal, and leads CTO Group Operation at Axiata. Next, we have Minu Pradhan, a manager at Nepal Telecom's 5G Communications Department, a local telecommunications service provider. Then we have Pervez Iftikhar, an international consultant on ICT policy and regulations. Pervez advises governments, telecom administrations, and regulators in developing economies. Our fifth speaker is Khalid Khan, founder of Central Asian Cellular Forum. With over 30 years of experience, Khalid is known for his commitment to the promotion of IT, telecom, and media, especially in the developing countries. Last, but certainly not least, we have Asif Aziz, Chief Business Officer at Jazz, Pakistan's leading mobile operator and digital company. Now, before we dive into the discussion, let me give you a bit of background on Vivo's efforts in 5G and introduce our theme for today. At Vivo, we strive to bring you a boundless intelligent world through ICT. To this end, by focusing on state-of-art consumer technologies, including 5G, we are building bridges between humans and digital world. In other words, we put a lot of efforts into making 5G smartphones more convenient and accessible for consumers. Our powerful X and V series, for instance, offer some of the slimmest 5G phones in the market thanks to our 3G stacking technology. These phones also come with excellent power-saving features and incredible reliable connectivity, all backed by years of R&D. With over 100 global standard experts working on 5G research, we are committed to enabling a seamless 5G experience for all our consumers worldwide. As of today, Vivo is one of the leading standalone smartphone contributors to 3GPP standards with more than 10,000 5G proposals and about 5,000 5G invention patents. However, it's not just about numbers and specification, but about the impact we have on human lives through our technology. As a region experiencing robust growth, Asia is yet to fully benefit from deployment of 5G. Our sector is making huge strides towards making 5G a reality for consumers. And I hope today's discussion offers a glimpse of what lies ahead for this vibrant region and its digital transformation. With that, let's welcome our first guest speaker, Muhammad Adil Israr. Muhammad, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. So I'll just keep it very brief. So what we need from a perspective of 5G is mainly the need of higher data throughputs and higher data speeds, which otherwise will not be able to offer into a 4G environment. And what basically we are seeing itself is that the point where 5G is taking up in certain applications and areas is that either number one, it's it's a replacement to an FTTX because in certain environments, it makes a lot of relevance because of the cost to deploy cables. And at the second time itself, it's also enabling and evolving around certain industry applications, which is helping us around digital innovation in the field of IoT and all of those things as well. So definitely looking at how the growth and everything is happening, 5G is something that is needed for our digital growth of the industry. And we being one of the main participant and the leading telecom operator in Nepal, part of Axiata Group, which is working in 10 countries across Asia. Certainly, we are very much into bringing this leapfrog technology into this country. So basically, the need of 5G, as I said correctly, is more around the applications that require intense latency, mission critical applications, and at the same time, it can possibly, and around the world, in some of our markets, we are also seeing this to be a replacement of an FTTX because otherwise FTTX is not viable in some of the environments. What is the current status we are seeing? And as I said in my previous presentation around the world, a lot of operators are now focusing because on eMBB on a small screen, unless and until the requirements are not really going critical, 4G is pretty much taking care of an eMBB need. But on more of the evolution around FWA and 5G is a key use case. And you can see in the map, there are a lot of countries around the world in developing countries as well as in developed countries that have actually used 5G FWA to actually bridge the digital gap approx. So coming back to the situation in Nepal, we see the small screen usage per user at this point of time is staying around 4 gig, and around 95% of people are using small devices, small screen handsets, mainly primarily the mobile phones. And with the ecosystem, which is currently hovering around, the average speeds required for those users are not more than 3 Mbps. And if you see the breakup, and that's the latest intelligence report that we are giving from the Nepal statistics, most of the users are either into streaming, they're doing web browsing and file access as well. Whereas all those mission critical applications that may require 5G immediately, that is not the norm across the people, and people are not usually using it. So the way we see 5G coming up in Nepal, there are a couple of applications that we think about it. This country being a landlocked country, having more than 40% of area in mid-hills and mountains, there will be a probable case of bringing 5G in the form of an FWA. First, together with eMBB, because eMBB still we have less than 7% of handset penetration in this market at this current stage. And the user maturity has not reached to a point where actually you would consider that to be leapfrog immediately within 3 to 6 months of horizon. But the challenges that we see, the country itself, economy has not significantly grown. They're still coming out of the impacts of pandemic, countries opening up. The per capita income is also playing an important part. And we looking at even 5G CPE, the cost is hovering around $250. And on the other hand, players like Vivo, as you mentioned, you guys need to work on the adoption of 5G handsets, because currently the penetration of 5G supported handsets is very low. And one of the barriers in the market is the price point, because still the 5G handsets are beyond the affordability of 60% of the population. And one of the challenges that we also see from a perspective of Nepal is that the telecom market revenues are shrinking, thanks to the liberalization that has happened over years, where ISPs are having a lot of aggression. From a business case standpoint, we see that 5G is something that we see in the near horizon, somewhere between end of 2024 or early 2025. But having said that, there are a lot of preparations, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we are embarking on those preparation journey. Spectrum-wise, what we see for Nepal, thankfully, in absence of a UHF, entire 700 band is free, which is a critical requirement for deep indoor and as well as rural penetration. And at the same time, we are seeing band 40, band 41, as well as the C band, which is sub 6 gigahertz spectrum, that will primarily be driven for the adoption of 5G across the country. When we just see from a handset snapshot perspective, we see that these bands naturally are the ones which are actually being supported by the supporting handsets, and that's the latest data that we picked up from GSA. So basically, it's C-band, band 41, which is 2600, band 40, 2300, and N28, which is 700, are the leading bands that will primarily drive a lot of adoption into these particular bands itself for launching 5G in our market. Recommendation-wise, what we see with the spectrum usage that we have in hand, we see somewhere spectrum will get to a saturation point, as I said, end of 2024. So whatever the spectrum that we hold in hand to have this 4G and 4G plus in the market will also be exhausted in a period of 1.5 years from now. So it's very inevitable to start working on coming up with the framework. The fact remains is that we are committed to the earlier adoption of 5G in this country, and we are committed based on our experience in different markets. For example, in Malaysia, we already a 5G operator. But so far, we have not been able to have received the permission to do the 5G trial, despite we have applied it 6 months ago. So what we see from a perspective of Nepal market traffic adoption and growth, in fact, with the current spectrum holdings in 4G, we see that if we don't do anything in a year of 1 year now, we would see start seeing choking. And this will actually certainly push us, the operators, to start investing more heavily in providing capacities, which will definitely, with this declining ARPU and declining revenue markets, would be difficult for the operators to adopt for. So that's pretty much we believe from our side would be the key. And we are at the crossroads of an early adoption of 5G, because we see people progressing. So not only from a market readiness perspective, there are 3 levers that everybody has to work. One is the handset penetration. Affordability on handsets is the key, because this market is per capita income-wise one of the poorest country. The second adoption that is required is to start doing the preparation, because from a capacity perspective that we are providing to the user and the steady state growth that we are seeing in data, in a year or half, this will also be a challenge. And this will be the right sweet spot to go and talk about 5G launch to happen in Nepal. And last but not the least is perhaps since the main application in Nepal would be around extreme mobile broadband, there is no user or new market that needs to be established. That will be the existing users or market. And I think 90% of the world, everybody is serving 5G use case around EMBB alone. Our request and appeal would be from a regulatory standpoint that 5G spectrum pricing should be rationalized in accordance with that, because this is not a new frontier or new market that we're establishing. We have to serve the existing population, and that existing population would not be giving a lot of incremental revenue, especially in a situation and context of declining ARPUs and economy's growth stagnant at that level. With this, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your brilliant insight. So now I would like to welcome Pervez Iftikhar. Pervez, welcome.
So what I'll do is I'll just narrate the small story of 5G in Pakistan. The initiative so far that has been taken and the challenges that we face in the country right now. So globally, we all know that 5G is happening around the world. At places it has been introduced, at places it is still in its infancy. The smartphones are also coming up, and of course there are over 1 billion connections. In Pakistan, we have so far had trials of 5G only, and all the 4 MNOs, the mobile network operators, have carried out these trials successfully, as it is being claimed. The initiative for 5G was taken in Pakistan by the IT minister. The current IT minister was also the IT minister of the previous government, incidentally, and he announced that we will have 5G by the beginning of 23, which is now, around now, this time. A committee was formed by him back in 3rd January 2020. The so-called Advisory Committee for 5G Planning in Pakistan. I happen to be a part of that. Its first meeting was held on 25th February, and then, of course, subsequently, some other meetings were held. Later on, the World Bank also offered help. I mean, this was not one of those World Bank projects where they give loan and that has to be repaid. This was a kind of a free of charge technical assistance that they offered. So they started working on it as well. In March 21, almost a year later, they came up with a report, or a discussion draft, as they like to call it, which was a 5G readiness plan for Pakistan. It was quite a comprehensive document, 124 pages. Its main author was Scott Minin from Australia, a well-known consultant. He held lots of discussions with the stakeholders in the country. But unfortunately, all those discussions had to be done remotely because it was not possible to come to Pakistan or to any country because of COVID restrictions in Australia. So anyhow, this discussion draft was widely discussed. And what the telecom wing of the Ministry of IT did was to have their own consultations, stakeholders consultations, and come up with another draft policy guidelines, which they called 5G strategic plan and policy guidelines, but this was also supposed to be a draft. Incidentally, its recommendations were very interesting because some of them were addressing the government itself. For example, it recommended that the spectrum auction should be investment friendly, which of course means lower prices and easier payment terms. It recommended duty-free network equipment for 5G. It also recommended similar rebates and zero duties on the smartphones and components and IoT devices. It also recommended a review of the right-of-way policy. Basically, this was intended for the optic fiber cables, but very important because the penetration is low in the country. And then refarming framework of the spectrum. This has been done partly. The 1800 megahertz band has been refarmed, and but the 900 is still to be done. But this was one of the recommendations of this committee. Allowing spectrum trading and sharing. This is allowed in the policy, in the previous policy, which is still valid, but the framework is missing. So they pushed for that. And of course, they wanted to push the local assembly and production of the devices in the country. So these are some of the recommendations, not all of them, but the main ones. Meanwhile, the mobile network operators were pointing at challenges, and rightly so, not that they are making up these things. They said the penetration of 4G is too low in the country. So according to this PT annual report that I saw, the regulator's annual report of the last year's report, in September 22, there was 49% 4G subscriptions of the total mobile broadband subscriptions. So this is, of course, now crossed 50%, but this is still too low. Then the optic fiber cables, again, September 22, it was that 11% of the towers were connected with optic fibers. Of course, 5G needs big data pipes, read optic fiber cables, and the penetration, as you can see, 11% is not very good. The telecom sector players' financial health is not very good. The ARPU is among the lowest in the world. Currently, according to the PTA website, it is 232 rupees, which is about 80 cents, which is, as I said, currently is one of the lowest in the world. The regulatory payments, especially the spectrum fees, are rising because the spectrum fees are pegged to the US dollar. Now, whenever the rupee depreciates as against dollar, the payments rise. So this is a continuous battle, and the payments are rising continuously without the government ever having to raise them in rupee terms. So this is a very big challenge for the operators. And of course, the customs and duties are one of the highest in the world as far as the taxes and all kinds of custom duties. So one of the highest in the world in Pakistan. I'm talking of the duties on the telecommunications equipment. Then there are, as mentioned by the previous speaker, Muhammad Adil, also the 5G handset availability and affordability is an issue. Although it is claimed that 700 models are now available, but it still remains, especially from the affordability point of view, the market is quite price sensitive, and this is a big issue. Then the digital ecosystem in the country is not so developed. I mean, all the elements like e-commerce, cloud computing, IoT, blockchain, etc., they're all in the early years, not infancy perhaps, but very early years. So that also has an impact on the launching or not launching of 5G. And of course, there is no 5G policy as yet, especially on 5G spectrum. This is something which is I think required. It should be the first step towards going to the adoption of 5G. So the general consensus is that the challenges are huge. Of course, I just give you two examples of the infrastructure which I mentioned in the previous slides. The 11% towers connected connected with optic fibers is one of the lowest in similar countries. So that needs to be addressed at a quick pace somehow. And of course, the spectrum, I also mentioned this earlier, that the spectrum allocated to the mobile network operators in Pakistan is one of the lowest. This slide is slightly old, as you can see, 2021, but nothing much has changed. I mean, of course, there are more spectrum issued even in Pakistan, but the overall picture remains more or less the same. So while all these discussions were continuing last year, this time of last year, somehow the country, as you may be reading in the newspapers and hearing in television, country went through, got embroiled in some political, economical, challenging situation, which is unprecedented, and therefore nothing much has happened in the previous 12 months or so. So last slide, my own thoughts of what we should do and what we need to do is that the government and PTA, and I've been discussing this and I've been saying this to my colleagues in the government and the PTA, that the 5G policy should be formulated as soon as possible, but not giving any committed 5G launch date. Let that remain as it is. Don't mention any date, but come up with a 5G policy. Then auction spectrum, which should be technology neutral, which means it should be usable by the MNOs for 4G, as not just 5G only. Large contiguous blocks, which is a requirement of 5G. Low prices, easier payment of terms. And of course, lower the customs duties or taxes on the 4G and 5G related infrastructure equipment, optic fiber cables, kits for the smartphones and things like that. All those which help, which impact 4G and 5G layout. The network operators taking advantage of these, if I may call them concessions, initially they should focus on increasing 4G deployment and adoption, because that is their complaint also, and that is also a requirement that we should have more. The percentage of mobile broadband subscriptions in 4G should cross maybe 75-80%. And at the same time, in order to help indigenous use cases, we need to have 5G hotspots for universities and research organizations. And let the market take care of the timing of the 5G launch. I agree with the previous speaker that maybe we should expect that in 12 months, maybe to 18 months, but to force the industry to come up with a firm date may not be the best policy. Let the market decide. As I wrote in my newspaper article very recently, the challenges are huge, but not insurmountable. We have to work for them. And during this time, instead of giving dates and instead of saying we should have or not have, let us start preparing for them. Start preparing for 5G. I thank you very much.
Very inspiring, Professor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now let's hear from Asif Aziz.
Let me just explain a little bit about Pakistan as well, for those people who are not familiar. A huge country, 227 million population, very large youth population, and getting into the digital economy. Literacy rate could be better at 63%, but 21% only have a bank account. The GDP isn't great. It's at 378 billion, and a lot of it is done by some of the foreign remittances. The country is expansive. It borders from China, India, Afghanistan, Iran, and has a seaport in the south and is managed by a number of provinces. Within the market itself, 194 million subscribers, so 86% penetration has been achieved. Unfortunately, on that, as Mr. Pervez Iftikhar just shared, digital penetration is still low at 127 million internet users, as according to the PTA reports, of which 110 million are 4G. So less than half of the country is using it, and of the population penetration, it's 56%. Smartphone penetration has been rising, but in the recent years, and I mean the last 18 months, it has slowed down quite substantially, and I'll cover as to why that has happened. Social media is prolific. 72 million of the users in the country are using social media. Jazz has a very ambitious project here in terms of what we want to be. We want to be a digital partner of the future for our customers. We go beyond just the access connectivity of providing voice and data. We have a number of apps that have been built in-house here in the country. The Masha, our entertainment app, is one of the largest entertainment apps in the country right now. We are monitoring it. Jazz World, our own app, has become a super app. It's not just a self-care platform, but there are discounts. It's integrated with entertainment, and it's integrated with Islamic services as well, and is one of the biggest used local apps as well. We also have Bajao, BIP. We've recently launched a partnership with Turkcell, and we brought in our own social messaging platform as well. So we are not just a mobile operator, but we have this as well. And of course, it wouldn't be justice if I didn't talk about our Jazz Cash product, which is the largest mobile wallet service in the country right now, with over 14 million users using access to Jazz Cash every single day. So a lot of consumers are spending time online. But I am going to just concur with the previous speaker. The challenge we have today is Pakistan needs more 4G before we can start providing 5G for a few. The penetration of 4G, as you can see, according to that graph, has decelerated in 22 and 23. And I'm embarrassed to share with you that I'm selling more 2G today than 4G. And there is a real reason for that. The taxation on these handsets is so high that actually people cannot afford it. So the taxation that the government has implemented on phones that are bought into the country or that are used within the country is so high that actually people are going back to 2G services because of affordability. We've invested a considerable amount, but still far too many people do not use 4G. And as Mr. Iftikhar also shared, Fiberization, I've got it around 10%. I think it was 11% in his presentation, but only 90% plus of our network is not connected to fiber. So backhaul will be a real challenge. And then when I look at the 5G handset penetration, well, that's less than 1% of the handsets. Very typical. Taxation on a high-end device can be as much as the cost of the device itself. So in some cases, an iPhone can have about $1,000 worth of taxation on the device. So if the handset costs you $1,000, you'll have to probably pay another $1,000 in taxation. So people are not opting for these high-end devices. If I just talk about the use cases, what people are doing, and I put this on a very simple matrix, just I was trying to understand it for myself as well. What is relevant in Pakistan on one scale, and what can be done on 4G, and what probably requires 5G. Right now, most of my customers are using streaming. Some are making video calling, a little bit of e-commerce through our Jazz Cash, and of course the OTT platforms that we have here, such as Tamasha, Bajao, our TV and music. And we have got other third-party applications in the country as well from international brands. Most of that can be done on 4G. What will then require some of the 5G technologies, 3D video calling, immersive gaming, automated vehicles, driverless cars. I don't think these things are relevant in the country today. From where I sit in my position as a C-level of the world of Pakistan's largest mobile operator, I cannot see these things coming into the market in the next immediate time frame. Certainly not the ambitious one that we had where 5G would have been launched this year. What we have done is we've been trialing this, and Mr. Iftikhar very correctly noticed that we should be working with educational establishments. We've established a 5G innovation lab at the local university here in Islamabad, and we'll be working to fiberize our towers. So 5G we have deployed, we have tested, we are ready for it, but we're unable to proceed because the use cases are not quite there, and internally our data penetration is lagging behind. Now I really come to what I really need. I think Professor Iftikhar Saab was very generous in talking about subsidized. No, I need free assignment of 5G spectrum. The current spectrum is pegged to the dollar. Through no fault of mine whatsoever, my spectrum prices have more than increased by 100% in the last 1 year alone. My revenue has not grown 100% because I collect in PKR. I cannot push that onto our poor consumers, which is why our revenue is at $80 cents. Of course, it would have been at $2 cents only 2 years ago. Of course, I can try to double prices to 600-700 rupees. That will cause more angst to our consumers. We've got import restrictions in the country right now because of the control on outflows of foreign exchange. I would suggest zero import taxes on 5G and 5G equipment because these things will be enablers for the country to boost the economy. There should be lower taxation on the higher end devices. Whilst it may sound counterintuitive, I think we need to increase taxation on the 2G devices so that we restrict the entry of 2G and we get everybody to get onto 4G. With 4G penetration at about 55%, this needs to reach 80% very quickly for us to be able to build a credible perspective of providing 5G. I need government support on this one. I cannot work without our bureaucracies for specific use cases to be built in country, IoT, driverless cars, any other remote work that can be undertaken. I think it requires a lot of work. Our financial health has been discussed. We are in an emergency. Interest rates went up another 1 percentage points, which wiped off significant amounts of our profit. Energy costs are going through the roof. My spectrum fees are linked to the dollar. Our returns are now squeezed to the point of no longer being viable entities. There has been emphasis on local production of smartphones, which was a great initiative by the government. But since the restriction of the imports, the components could no longer come into the country. So therefore, handset production has also stopped. I would also go one step further, and I would make it a policy statement that no local produced phone can be 2G or 3G, has to be 4G only. Too many people are still making 2G phones and flooding the market with these very cheap $3, $4, $5 phones, and consumers are adopting them. We do need to have the right of way and other discussions that were mentioned earlier on to help us accelerate our fiberization. I am looking at this audience now and encouraging people to view this from the lens which I look at it, which is this is nothing short but a broadband emergency in the market. The incumbent players are struggling to stay alive with punitive policies that have been put in place, is making it very difficult for us to build a viable 5G business case right now. We need significant support in order to move forward. And I think putting on an arbitrary date to me that says by January 2024, you will have launched 5G doesn't help. What I do like is a dialogue, and I need to be consulted and I need to be involved in any policy decision making. And I urge on all people observing this to take what I'm asking with some seriousness, because I actually think 5G can unlock significant economic value for the country. With 220 million people, more of them on data, I think we are on the precipice of being able to find significant new revenue growths, not just for consumers, for businesses, but for the government as well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. At Vivo, we are eager to contribute to the development of next generation of connectivity in the region. Telecommunication technology is certainly advancing at unprecedented speed, providing greater opportunities for innovative products. I want to continue by welcoming Khalid Khan. Welcome, Khalid.
Thank you, Rakesh. It's good to hear, my colleagues from the industry speaking on, in fact, everything that I wanted to speak on. Actually, so left nothing for me to add on even. But it's being a technologist, it's always important for us to move forward. The biggest crime in the technology industry today is the status quo. We need to see how we can move ahead with technology. I've been instrumental in putting up the first 2G network, and then we were pushing for 3G, and now and 4G, and of course 5G is very close to our heart, because with all the challenges that my colleague Parvez and Asif Aziz has mentioned, we still need to move forward because the consumer, some of them, maybe not all 100%, but they do deserve to reap the benefits of technology. Now, how do we address that issue is a separate thing. From a local perspective, Parvez and Asif Aziz have in very detail, address all those aspects. Two things that really are very important to Pakistan and probably countries like us, Pakistan in the region, is that we are also exporters of, and our main export is going to be human capital. So my case for 5G, and we need to move forward with this, that for a very long time, we were late in adopting 3G and 4G. In fact, we were late by almost 8 years. And the world has moved forward. Our engineering human resource became obsolete, and they were not easily employable in the globe. So one of the reasons I always advocate that we also need to adopt technology is because our main export is human resource, and we need to have some sort of technology at the front, so that people get trained and then they could be easily employable. We produce something like 25 to 30,000 people in IT and telecom every year. We produce that. So that's a commodity export. The other thing that we do, there's a lot of emphasis in Pakistan, is we are a major exporter, or I would not say major, but substantial exporter of IT services from when it comes to the share of GDP in Pakistan. We do export something around $2 billion of IT services. And some of them are in the range where it involves IoT, VR, XR, and all those kind of services that run really good on these networks. So that's another case why we need to have 5G in the country, and that's the local perspective that we need to keep in mind. And the challenges, of course, I agree with both my colleagues in the industry that for a very long time we have these issues of economic, thing that the spectrum has been unfortunately pegged at a very high price, and that's probably the benchmark that we have set. The government has set, and we need to move out of that mindset to ensure that it's easier for the mobile network operators to to get the spectrum, and not only to get the spectrum, but enough spectrum should be there to have a reasonable 5G network, actually, because if you are going to give a smaller spectrum, then there's no difference between a 4G network and a 5G network. So it's very important that enough spectrum is provided for any kind of deployment in Pakistan to get the kind of I would say consumer experience, or the network that we can build on top of that. So that's one thing. The other thing that we need to also do is to look at the whole industry in totality. We just cannot have just a spectrum given to 5G and say that it would fly on its own. We also have to do fiberization of the country, because then the backhauling and all those things have to happen. We also need to look at the Wi-Fi spectrum, because all these next generation applications are going to be developed based on the newer Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7. So those kind of spectrum allocation, which is generally free, it doesn't get any money for the government, also needs to be taken into account. So those are the things that we need to address, and I fully agree with my colleagues from the industry that there has to be out of the box kind of solution where either the government give them spectrum free of cost for initial 5 years or 3 years, or they should be given some license which is free of cost for at least the first big 10 cities. We do expect, because when networks roll out, the major cities from where the money comes in to offset, the rollout in the rural areas, that could be another possibility. There could be other, possibilities, but the government mindset has to be there to address this. And as Asif said, they need to talk to the mobile network operators and address those issues. Taxation obviously has been a major hindrance in technology, rolling out to different parts of the country, especially in the rural areas. So we do have mechanism like the USF, but that's very little actually. The government needs to do more. So those are the things that I would really like, and agree with my colleagues in the industry. But as a closing point, I would still say that we need to look at the entire connectivity issue in totality. That also does fiberization, the Wi-Fi, the taxation, and all this needs to be done. And we should have a short, long-term, and a medium-term plan to do that, because we need to take the industry with us to get the consumer the benefit of new technologies. So I would close at that, because before me, my colleagues have really articulated on the subject and the locals' perspective. So I hope that completes the picture from Pakistan, and it would be good to hear our other colleagues from Nepal to hear as them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for very powerful words of wisdom. Thank you, Khalid. So now let's welcome Neeraj Vusal.
Thank you so much for this. So I am Neeraj Basal from Nepal and currently studying in China, Wuhan, China. So as a final student, with my topic as 5G, which is and to be more specific, my topic is antenna selection in 5G, massive MIMO. So I think we have talked more about 5G and all the technological aspects in the beginning, and I think everything is covered. But as an academician, I want to just I want to go to an generalized way of what 5G is. And before going to what 5G is, so it's a 40-year journey from 1G to 5G now. So we started and then we went to 2G. So which introduced digital technology with text messages and data transmission and all. So after that we got 3G in 2000. So we introduced CDMA technology, UMTS technology, and we got the mobile internet services for the first time. So when we were in 2G, we used to get the E or GPRS logo. If we remember, we were using the normal bar phones, normal Nokia phones. So we used to get that connections of E and 2G with just basic browsing, web browsing using the default phone browser app. So in 2010, so everything changed to 4G, which brought technologies like LTE, VoLTE. So when we went to the generation of social media, so video streaming platform, gaming platform, so where we got high data speeds and all. So currently we are in the era of 5G. So luckily, since I am in China, so I am getting to the taste of 5G, so which is not available in country, my country Nepal. So to understand 5G in short, 5G is expected to have expected or 5G is having ultra high data speed, which introduces technologies like millimeter wave, sub 6 gigahertz technology, which supports, which is an ecosystem for IoT, AR, VR, and autonomous driving thing. So I already talked about this. So to understand 5G in general way, so 5G is a wireless technology that introduces faster data transfer, low latency, and improved network reliability. So 5G is basically built on 3 core pillars. So we already discussed earlier. So it is ultra enhanced mobile broadband and ultra reliable low latency URLLC and machine type communications. So before we are going to a new generation or updating, so there is always a comparison between what the past was and what the present is going to be. So comparing 4G with 5G, we have numerous benefits, and to sum up, I have made some points here. So as 4G was basically focusing on faster mobile broadband than 5G, so 5G is basically aiming to be a more capable and unified platform. So with 5G, you can expect high data speed up to 220 Gbps. That is the peak data speed, and the average data speed is 1000 Mbps. So when I see social media, mostly I see people when they just get 5G, the first thing they do is make a speed test and post it in the social media. So some are posting that 5G was promised to give us 1 Gbps plus data speed. So that's because that's the peak data rates, and the current data speeds we are getting is the average data rates. So the another benefit of having 5G is low latency. So 5G, so comparing 4G and 5G, the latency is expected to have a 10x decrease from 10 from 100 to 40 to 1 milliseconds. So another one is the use of spectrum, which was already talked by our speakers. So 5G is expected, 5G supported like low bands from 1 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz, and the high bands known as millimeter waves. And also 5G enables the development of new technologies like IoT, support for the AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and self-less driving technology, autonomous driving technology, and more. So this is the data I got. I think we have already discussed about the 5G status today. So currently we have 5G in all the leading countries, including China, US, and other countries. And recently, India also has launched the 5G, and which covers more than 100 plus cities in India. So the current status of 5G is that 5G has been deployed by 200 plus operators globally, and 285 plus additional operators are in the 5G connections. So we have 1 billion plus 5G connections currently. So I think this data says that we will be having connections 1 billion plus connections by 2023, but we have 1 billion plus connections in 2022. Since recently I got the data from China, it says that in China we have more than 1 billion plus 5G users by the end of 2022, including all the leading telecom companies, which include China Mobile, China Unicom, and China Telecom. So when 5G comes, the most important thing that we get is the smartphone, because smartphone is one of the easiest device that get the taste of 5G. So 5G smartphone shipments was more than 700 million plus shipments in 2022. And the shipment is expected to be growing more. Even we have many challenges of 5G shipments in my country also, and this currently the economic crisis and the recession. But the smartphone shipment, 5G smartphone shipment is expected to have more than 3.8 billion plus shipments. So during my study period and my research, I found that these are the key trends in 5G, key trends of 5G in 2023. So basically, when you talk about speed and all, so the first thing comes is the standalone 5G. So most of the telecom companies and the countries currently they have the non-standalone 5G. So which means that we are using the current infrastructure used by the 4G infrastructure. So mostly, I think that the telecom companies in 2023 they are going to upgrade that non-standalone 5G to standalone 5G. In my country also, we recently got the 5G trial in 2023 this February by Nepal Telecom, and is also the non-standalone 5G. So another thing is 5G is expected to have generate the high revenue for the telecom companies. And there was a company which predicted that the revenue of 5G for telecom operators will be increased by 35%. So it means that we will be having more than 600 million plus users with 315 billion plus revenue. And another trend in 5G is currently we have the trend of AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Google Bard, Notion AI, and all. So telecom companies will start integrating AI in 5G. That will also help improve the performance, user behavior, and moreover that will be focused on the reliability of 5G and all. So another thing trend that we will be having about 5G in 2023 is the IoT, support for IoT, AR, VR, and autonomous driving and autonomous vehicles. Since the middle leasing companies and the countries around the globe, they are investing more in this type of things. And all the tech giants like Facebook, Google, they have started investing in metaverse and all. So another important aspect is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is both the challenge and both the possibility for 5G. And other thing I found was 5G messaging service. I think that currently the 5G includes data transmission rate, but 5G message, but still we are having the SMS and voice calls in 3G or 4G service. So recently in China Unicom has started developing a protocol for messaging service. So I hope that will go well, and we will be having a 5G messaging service. Since the companies like Apple and Google, they have invested in RCS system. So these are the companies that will be having the impact of 5G. These are the industries. So the first industry is expected to have the mobile companies, mobile industry. And the other things are agriculture industry, construction and mining industry, digitized education industry, connected healthcare system, smart city. Recently, I had been lucky to visit two major factories in China. So one was the lithium ion battery factory. It was Gangfeng lithium ion factory. So the factory is producing more than 12,000 tons of lithium batteries by day. But one thing that they are doing is automation. So 5G will be expected to impact on this industry for automation. And other company I went recently was the medical factory. All the thing they do is automation in the production of the goods. So these are the industry that will be going to have impact by 5G. So as an academician, so these are some of the things I'm going to sum up for the research or all, because the first thing is network architecture. So I'm in this era. So my research topic is based on efficient antenna selection for 5G systems based on massive MIMO. So currently, if you buy the smartphones and if you go through the specifications, you will find the term that MIMO 4x4 or MIMO 2x2. So that basically focuses on improving the network performance. So if students or academicians choose network architecture, there are numerous topics they can go through. So that will basically help optimizing network performance. Another topic is security and privacy. So with that topic, we can go through developing security solutions. The other one is IoT. So with the help of 5G, we can go to the era of developing more enhanced IoT capable devices and protocols and all. So other is AI. Since AI is now as a chatbot, so maybe we can use AI for improving the user performance, user behavior, and all. So I choose this quote because currently everything goes behind the background, behind the back end is like it's just like a magic. When we were kids, we used to see some magic. So now technology itself feels like a magic. Even the 5G things, the innovations we are having, everything feels like a magic. So any sufficiently advanced technology is indispensable for a magic. So I think the magic is on, and we'll be getting more magic in the coming future. With development of AI, this communications, everything is going to get a new paradigm. So thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Finally, let's welcome our last speaker today, Minu Pradhan. Welcome, Minu.
Thank you so much. So much has been discussed, and our story from Nepal is not different from Pakistan for 5G, I guess. And why this 5G is needed, we don't have to tell that the technology has developed, and more or less Nepal or Pakistan cannot be left behind using this technology. Ultimately, in 1 or 2 years, this technology will mature, and the vendors will not have equipments for 4G, or they don't have spare, they will have end of service, those kind of things. So we will need to adopt this technology, no matter what, and the bandwidth requirements from our subscribers or industries that will require for the development. But there are few challenges, as our previous colleague have already highlighted. So I would like to highlight more. So one is choosing of frequency. What frequency is will be suitable? Like in Nepal, we have most of our country is in a mountainous region. And initially, we need to have sub 1 gigahertz frequency. So, and for city areas, we need to have mid-band frequency. And one more thing, as my previous colleague from NCL said, is the pricing of this frequency will be one of the key challenges. Like this will not increase our ARPU or something like this. Is a add-on technology which will be needed to enhance our services. So I think our regulatory has to be very instrumental if we need to bring our 5G technology in this country is to have a good pricing. And another challenge will be our handset penetration. As we can see from our analysis that only 2 to 3%, I think not more than 2%, I guess, is the handset penetration in Nepal for 5G, and the affordability of these handsets these handsets, and as my colleagues have already said that these are still expensive, and given the economy of Nepal, the affordability can be a big question. And another challenge will be our huge investment on the systems, radio access networks. Now our Nepal Telecom and other two competitors have deployed 4G network. We have not got our investments back yet still, but now again we have to invest on this new technology, and depending upon what architecture we use, it's non-standalone architecture or standalone, the investment will depend on that. And another big challenge will be the interworking with different vendors if we have a new this thing. And for most, we need to have a good layer of voltage for the voice traffic, because voice for the fallback or voice over NR, we cannot have big carpet coverage of 5G network. So for the voice, we need to fall on voice over LT or this voice over CS voice, but CS voice will not be supported. So those kind of things are there. And another is one of the challenges we will have is handset onboarding. Handset onboarding is one of from the positive part of it. What we have just as our colleague Neeraj has said that we have this we are doing the trials, and what we find is one of the challenges interworking with two vendors, and another is handset onboarding. It's not like you just bring the set and it works, but we need to really be close coordination with the handset vendors and for the onboarding of the sets. And another challenge we have is, like our Pakistani colleagues said, is the backbone network. Like you cannot just have microwave networks and dreaming of launching our 5G. Like even if we are even with 4G, it's a big challenge to launch 4G on the microwave because it consumes lots of data network, lots of bandwidth. So fiberization of network will be the one of the big challenges in countries like Nepal with high mountainous region where most of our sites are connected with microwaves. So I think in conclusion, I think we need to wait and watch for the more mature network, like learning from other countries, and even in Nepal, we have to wait for price to be affordable for operators, as well as affordable handset price for the consumers, and use cases like our colleagues have said, like not only EMBB or FWA. One of the immediate use cases, FWA can be there, but still the handsets are not very affordable. So we have to wait and watch to implement our 5G network. First of all, I think our policies have to be in line with for the deployment of 5G network, and lots of governments help on making the frequency and import taxes more relaxing, or even our colleague from Pakistan says free for 5G network to be deployed. I think my conclusion is that. Thank you so much.
What a great way to conclude this portion of the event and open the floor for discussion. I think we can agree that 5G technology is set to revolutionize the way we connect with each other, learn, and do business. Therefore, the main gateway for consumers to dive into the new digital era must be the most accessible, affordable, and readily available device for all, the smartphone. As one of the leading smartphone makers and 5G pioneers, Vivo has designed a wide range of products that are ready for next generation of connectivity and cater to different consumers' preferences and budgets. Our aim is to empower all our customers to thrive in the new digital world. With that, the main topic of our discussion today revolves around one central question. How can 5G technology make a real difference in our daily lives and contribute to the revitalization of society? Mohammed, welcome your thoughts.
Sorry, the point that, can you repeat your question because your voice was a little bit...
Yeah, so this is about like how the 5G can contribute to our society and our revitalization of our society. Like,
I think a couple of my colleagues, I think I'll take a cue from what Asif has said earlier, that it's more of a overall ecosystem development. So what is more important for 5G is that, first of all, what are the use cases for a specific market that you wanted to drive? And those needs to be commercially viable. In context of Nepal, what you see in this particular scenario is that it's a country which is landlocked, and a lot of people are actually deprived of basically the basic facilities. Also, there are areas where you need to do a 2 days or 3 days hike to even somebody to bring it to the hospital. So while commercially it may not be viable in the initial stages, there are certain areas where 5G can leapfrog those mass infrastructure deployment needs, which otherwise would take ages and years to deploy. For example, in case of Nepal, even with 4G, we are partnering with certain NGOs and health organizations where we are trying to do remote diagnostics and trying to provide them a central repository where these things can be actually stored and a kind of AI can be put on top of it. So while the basic set of connectivity is helping to start with those use cases, it is very prudent and it's very evident that 5G will also be playing a lot of role, because still the physical environment of doing a lot of things around those development is something that needs to be done. Second thing itself is, as we said, that it's a landlocked country, 45% or 40% to 45% is mountains. Fibers are not feasible. People can't afford it. Education is something that government has an agenda to drive. And this is where we as operator together with the society can contribute. And with the massive need of, the education, health, as well as the government sector, probably a stage where this evolution needs to happen from 4G to 5G to support those data needs. So yes, 5G has a remarkable role to play, and contrary to what happened at 4G time, my personal view is that if the government as well as the private sector, they come hand in hand, make good policies, just like a couple of my colleagues are talking about, that how the spectrum auctions needs to happen, what should be the pricing strategy, and how exactly we wanted to adopt it. Definitely, it would play a bigger role for developing nations and countries rather than developed nations. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. So, Pervez, what do you think?
Well, more or less the same, that 5G does have its benefits, and we have to go along with the rest of the world, if nothing else. But for countries like Pakistan, for example, the massive IoT, I think, is one killer application that we need, not only in agriculture, where we can have improved automatic watering systems in place using using massive IoT. Pakistan is a water-stressed country, and it's going to get worse as we go along. Then similarly, livestock monitoring on a massive scale, and then of course healthcare. 5G affords us the possibility of providing a massive the healthcare on a mass scale, which no other technology can offer, and of course disaster recovery and emergency medical services. Again, we have sometimes these massive earthquakes which cause a lot of damage in the mountainous areas which are not accessible somehow, and also in the plains we have floods. For example, last year we had massive floods all over the country, not just in the north or south. So all these things can IoT has got a big role to play, especially massive IoT. And I think not just that, but smart education. Now, for example, with 3D visualization, we can teach the kids many things which presently they don't even understand, and they try to memorize things. Of course, this will require a lot of investment on the school side, but that is, at least it becomes feasible. It becomes doable if once we have something like 5G. So it certainly adds to the efforts that can be made towards education, agriculture, healthcare, all important domains of the economy in a country like Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And next, let's welcome views from Asif.
The economic benefits of 5G and data are well known. There was a report some time ago by, I think, Capgemini and GSMA that talked about every 10 percentage points increase in data penetration has a corresponding 1 to 2% impact on GDP. Data penetration in our country is still only at 50%. If we can get our data penetration up to 30%, that would be almost 4 to 5% increase in GDP. And right now, our country is struggling economically. Focusing on data and 4G and 5G can add billions to our economy. So the entrepreneurs behind us are there in order to use the data. They need the customer base behind them. So I don't think the debate is around should 5G arrive, should 5G not arrive. I think the debate has to be around a much broader vision of how do you take a country forward and generate new revenue streams that previously did not exist. What came first? Was it social media or was it 4G? And of course, the idea was the technology enabling platform will arrive that will then fuel entrepreneurs and innovators to be able to leverage that platform. So again, it's a catch-22 situation, really. If you build it, I believe they will come. But if I am to build it, I need to have an economically viable model to be able to build it.
Thank you. So next, Khalid, would you please share your opinion?
Yeah, thank you. I think I agree with Asif, actually. You know, when 4G didn't happen, actually, and we were just talking about application that would come in, faster video, blah, blah, blah. And when it came, it transformed the entire transportation sector. We had these Uber, Careem, and everything came in. So I'm a great proponent of, you know, providing the expressways, and I call 5G the expressway, so that, you know, the innovators could come up with different application. I foresee, you know, if there was 5G and it had happened 3-4 years back, we would all not be sitting here and doing a video call, but rather we would be walking into a virtual conference room to have a live kind of a discussion where we could feel and touch each other maybe. So we need to have the enabling environment, to have the technology there, and then all these applications would fall in. There would be improvement on the existing applications. So all this would happen actually. And I agree that we need to have the networks there, and there are lots of innovative people, innovative companies in this region, in Nepal, maybe in Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, and the next Google and those companies could probably come in from this region. So I personally believe that if we do a good job in regulatory environment, we try and help the operators to put on the networks, the IT community, and I am part of that, would come in with those kind of applications that are not even thought of actually, or it's still, I still believe, this like I used to, when I was small, I used to see Star Trek. And that phenomenon is going to happen very soon, or maybe it's already here. So we need to have those, infrastructure and all those policies in place, and have the MNOs to do their job, and we as an IT companies would come in with those kind of applications. So my 1 pence there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Neeraj, welcome your remarks on this question.
Yeah, sure. So I think many things have been covered already. So to sum up, so 5G aims to revolutionize the way we interact with digital world, how we live, and how we work. So in country like Nepal, so where I belong to, there are many challenges from traveling. So especially when it's the capital-based city, so everything is based in the capital city like Kathmandu. So we have a difficult demography, and it's hard to travel physically. So when I was preparing my public service exam, so I had to come to the capital city just to take the class. So I had to get the rent for 3 or 4 months, and prepare for the exams, and then go back to my hometown, and then again prepare for my study, and then go back to other city to give my examination. So 5G or communications, better network connection is aimed to benefit in 2 factors in my country. One is the education industry. So during the COVID, we have learned that the distance learning or e-learning platforms are growing in Nepal. So it's going to benefit the entire populations from far western Nepal to eastern part of the Nepal. So other industry is the healthcare industry. So in our country, we have challenges of hospitals and good manpower. So many people, they don't want to go to the far western areas like Karnali and all. So maybe using 5G and stable connections. So we may not be able to go everywhere physically, but we may be able to get support from the virtual world. So this is how we interact with digital world. So 5G is expected to enhance our life in 2 ways. So first thing is education, and the second one is the healthcare industry in my country. Thank you.
Thank you all for the insights. What an exciting time for the region. All right, now it's time to open the floor to questions from media. First, let's welcome Amir Atta, founder of Pro Pakistani. Amir, let's start with your question.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank all of the speakers. A very insightful conversation. I really appreciate your thoughts and opinion. But as an observer, I must say that, and if I'm allowed to be honest and frank, the outlook seems pretty bleak, considering the prerequisites that we need for the 5G rollout in Pakistan or in Nepal for that matter. So I hope this situation gets better with the time, and not only that, but also because this is something that is essential for the betterment of the technology and all the other businesses that rely on internet. So my question is for Mr. Asif, and the question is, considering the lack of market-specific use cases and affordability of handsets. 5G handsets and other challenges that you have specified, what are the bare minimum, set of things that government must do for you to make 5G rollout a good business case or worthy consideration by you and other operators in Pakistan? And if you could just add one small bit, if government meets all these things that you might be specifying here, is there a timeline that you can share for a Pakistani user to expect 5G in Pakistan?
Thank you, Amir. Thank you for the question. First and foremost, has to make the spectrum available to us. We need a spectrum policy, which doesn't exist right now. So that would be the first and foremost. Second, the pricing of that spectrum has to be agreed. At the moment, the pricing is too restrictive. I will need a lot of spectrum. Today, we have something like 48 megahertz of spectrum, and that's very expensive. I would need at least 80 megahertz of further spectrum. So a pricing policy has to be agreed with what should it be. My advice and recommendation right now is to have a free spectrum available to the operators so that we can actually start deploying and trialing services in some of the largest cities in order to move forward. We can do that. To give you a time frame, it would still take at least 12 months in order to get that all up and running. But definitely there could be. But with import restrictions and taxation on the imports as well, it would make it economically unviable in order to allow the innovators to come in and deploy medical surgeries, to be able to deploy any form of smart city solution. And then I think the government would have to work with us in order to build the relevant use cases, which I think would have to be a public-private partnership in order to get this moving. The proposition for 5G cannot be, as it was said earlier on, I can now download 1 giga or I can download 800 megabits. That's not it. What most people need, the amount of 4G spectrum we have caters for most of that. To cater for the next, we need to actually work with the government in order to build friendlier policies to enable these services.
Thank you, Mr. Asif. Am I allowed to ask another question?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is for Mr. Pervez. As we all have, very extensively discussed the challenges that are there for us in order to see 5G in developing markets. But what are the probably, some lessons that we could learn from markets or from countries where 5G is already rolled out? There must be, some similar sort of challenges in those markets as well. How did they overcome those challenges? And what are the other, learnings that we could probably acquire for them? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, we can learn lessons from other countries, no doubt. We can also learn lessons from our own previous efforts and ventures. For example, we were late in deploying 3G. And unfortunately, there has not been any study as to what economic losses did we suffer because of that, because we were at least 6 to 8 years late. But the fact is that considering 3G and 4G and now 5G are benefiting the country economically, if you do not have that, conversely, then you are at least losing something. So by not doing that, we lose it. And so this is a lesson we should learn. And the government should not delay too much some of the very genuine demands of the industry in order for the industry to roll out the next technology. From some other countries also, yes. Unfortunately, we are in a very unique situation right now. As you probably know, all of you must be reading in the newspapers and seeing it on television. We are passing through a period where we are unfortunately politically and economically embroiled in a very odd, very awkward situation. And maybe the lessons of the other countries may not be exactly relevant here. Especially look at the some of the things that we have gotten into. Now I'm being specific about the industry. Spectrum price. I mean, we have been charging spectrum or pegging the spectrum price to dollars, even if it is paid in rupees. Now nobody knows how to get out of that. It is a typical problem in a country like ours and most third world countries. I'm afraid that if you do something to change that, it is considered to be a favor to the industry, and it may be linked to some underhand or under the table dealings. That is what the perception is, I'm saying. So nobody knows how to get out of, how to delink it from the dollar, or nobody knows how to bring a new base price for the spectrum auction, where the spectrum auction base prices have been set for the last, 2004 was the first auction. So for the last 20 years now almost. So these are some of the things where you get stuck. And our friends in the government and the regulator, in some of their off-guarded moments, accept that what is being demanded is fair, but it's difficult to come out of it. So we need some drastic, revolutionary kind of things in this. Otherwise, it is extremely difficult to compare ourselves with our neighbors, for example. Then, of course, lastly, I must mention the problem of fiber penetration. Now, the fiber penetration, because of right-of-way issues and some other, and taxes and other issues, the fiber penetration is extremely low, as we talked in the presentation also. And even if we start today in trying to increase the fiber penetration and lay a massive amount of fibers, if everything becomes extremely lucrative for the fiber operators to do that, it takes years. It takes years to dig and lay the fibers and start using them. So these are some of the challenges which may not be very unique to Pakistan, but certainly they are quite unique to Pakistan. And of course, somehow we have to find the solutions. Nobody else will do it for us. Thank you.
Thanks both. Next, let's welcome Arpana Magar, senior correspondent from TechPana. Arpana, please go ahead with your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my first question goes to Muhammad Adil, sir. So due to geographical barriers, we are already struggling to provide 4G services in all areas of Nepal. So in this scenario, I want to know what will be the feasibility of 5G in a country like Nepal?
Okay. I think a very good question. So first of all, let's decode this into two areas. And I think my previous colleagues have already re-emphasized a lot on fiberization of the sites, because fundamentally that's the fuel, the highway that is required to basically feed the data requirements. I think from that particular perspective, I just wanted to put some statistics onto the table. First is, despite all the challenges and being in Himalaya, at this date standing, we are talking about more than 88% of population covered with 4G. The second stat says that from a preparation of 5G perspective, the numbers are a little bit good, at least for us in NCEL. Our 44% of the sites are fiberized already. So all the urban plus suburban sites are 100% on fiber. And this is a journey that we have embarked in the last 3 years. So now when you talked about the penetration of 5G, the million-dollar questions actually lies on three things. First itself is, and I think my colleagues from the industry have re-emphasized it, and I'm reiterating that fact that spectrum is the key to fuel all these requirements. And it is very prudent with the requirements that spectrum needs to be auctioned considering the growth of digital era rather than making money out of it. That's the point number one. So looking at whatever the situation is, spectrum is becoming totally unaffordable for most of the emerging operators, which are doing in a sub 2 or sub $1 kind of ARPU environments, unlike the other areas where it is perfectly affordable and people can pay for it. The second part of it is that when we talked about Nepal being landlocked, still due to infrastructure challenges, the cost of deploying a site in downtown Kathmandu or any city compared to what we do in mid-hills, for example, or mountains is 4 to 5 times. And especially those people in terms of the affordability are 1/2 or 1/3 of what actually one people can afford in Kathmandu. So that implies that there has to be special focus from the government, especially to release the rural telecom development funds, which is what RTDF is called in Nepal, to really fuel that particular part so that we will be able to do that. The third part, which is obviously, and I think it's a catch-22 situation, as one of my colleagues mentioned, that whether the 5G has to come first or economic benefits have to come first. So I think that question, again, is a scenario, and we are into a pretty unique situation that looking at whatever the spectrum has been allocated to us, we're going to get into a choking situation by end of next year. So one way is that if we get the spectrum in a right pricing, with the deployment cost understood and government supporting on USF, specifically around the areas where it's not feasible to deploy, massive rollouts, then 5G would be the one that we will do that. Otherwise, the problem with our industry is that, like Pakistan also, and in this case in Nepal also, that we all have adopted the technologies very late. And usually an evolution of one phase is where an operator or any people who are launching these services to make money is 10 years, roughly, in any part of the world. So you do the mathematics, we launched 4G in 2018, and within 5 years, the government is expecting that we should have a 5G launch happening where the market itself is not ready. So yes, the relevance is there, but obviously these three factors needs to be triangulated to really get to a situation where 5G could be a viable option from a perspective of usage, from a perspective of driving the economy and digital growth, and fundamentally, which we all are believing, and we have seen a lot of cases, and in fact, in a couple of other markets where we are operating it as a part of a group, we have seen that 5G is positively contributing to the economy of that country as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to also ask a question to Neeraj Vishal, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So 5G technology is expected to create a disruption. So I want you to explain what could be the possible opportunities and uses of 5G network in a country like Nepal.
Yeah, so still the country like Nepal, we are still struggling to get a good data connectivity, good 4G. When you travel to cities out, go to rural areas, so it will be hard to get a good internet connection, and it is still hard to get good 2G connection also. So having 5G will be beneficial for numerous ways. So currently the crisis going on globally and all. So 5G it seems to be benefiting in the economy of our country. We can attract digital nomads around the world, because in Nepal we have a good infrastructure and good environment that can support the digital nomads. If you'll see the cities around Pokhara, and if you can see the places around Pokhara, like Dhampus area and other areas, we have many places that can be more suitable for the digital nomads. So Nepal can be a good city for digital nomads. If you can give a good connectivity, good connection solutions, we can attract them. Secondly, so we can attract all the tech giants companies. So currently, 5G is all about interacting with the digital world. Everything is going digital, and the cloud infrastructures and all. So we can attract the tech giants around the globe, like Amazon and all. Since we have Nepal is one of the major contributor in using cloud infrastructures for Amazon and Google, so we can attract them. So since we already have the good geography for that kind of solutions, so maybe we can attract the tech science company to establish those cloud solutions in our country, so which is going to be benefit for the country's economy itself. So the third part, the consumer itself. So maybe these are the different things that we can get benefit from the 5G.
Thanks for great questions and answers. Next up is Rizwana Omar from Phone World. Rizwana, please share your questions.
Okay, so before I ask my question, I just wanted to express my appreciation for all the speakers and Vivo for such an insightful session. My first question is to Mr. Khalid. After the emergence of 3G, 4G, we saw tremendous growth in online services like e-commerce, ride-hailing services, delivery services. So everything changed after the advent of 3G, 4G. So what similar opportunities do you think 5G will create in Pakistan?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Rizwana. I think when 3G, 4G had not come, we had not visualized, we were just thinking, that there would be faster video than we would see television on our mobiles, which happened also. But then when there were more data speed, we saw that the entire transportation sector was, evolved actually. And we saw Uber, Careem and all those services. And so were the cases, the fintech companies came in and everything came in. Similar would be the case in, 5G. There would be these transformation of other industries, not the mobile industry itself, although it will do that. But as Parvez said earlier, that the agriculture sector would have a boost. There we would have massive kind of IoT devices playing their role in agriculture. Then education, we have, I think, 40 million kids out of school that could, play a major role there. And then other kind of services that would come in. There would be new industries as well that would be created, and that would basically, because Pakistan, I come from a community where we interact with a lot of IT people, and they have the applications that they are working on, but those applications they are making for probably the developed markets because they don't foresee 5G coming in, and they are doing it for them. But once they do make those applications, when the products are ready and 5G is there, then we would see those kind of products itself coming into the market. So there would be interesting times coming up. We would see things that we would, at one point in time, as I said earlier as well, things that, in my age, and I don't know if you are all young, we used to see Star Trek, and, there would be these people coming into room virtually and talking to each other. So those kind of application, we are, in this region, the entire region I'm talking, not only in Pakistan, but India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Thailand, all these countries. They're very innovative people. Once we provide them the, the kind of expressways that we are talking here as 5G, the kind of devices, there would be new devices also, probably, and I would also see maybe Vivo, not only a handset manufacturer, but they would go into other devices, and they are actually probably, and Rakesh could dwell more on those things. So those kind of application would come in. Kick in. So the future is going to be much brighter, I'm more optimistic actually, because if we have to move, technology is the way to move forward with leapfrogging on most of the things that we today feel very depressed about. But I think once technology is there, things is going to start rolling out and application are going to come in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So my next question is to Mr. Asif Aziz. 5G is obviously the way forward, although we are in difficult situation right now, our country and the telcos at the same time. So what strategies do you think telcos should employ to start preparing for 5G?
So I think first and foremost, we need to fiberize more of our network. At the moment, it's about 10 or 11% of the network is on fiber. So that's first. Second thing, we do need to focus on the applications that will sit on top of the 5G services, such as the more advanced messaging platforms, the ability to provide remote 3D printing, the ability to provide much more enhanced connectivity. And I think a lot of this will come into the enterprise market in the B2B arena. So we need to be working with our higher end enterprise customers in order to automate their factories with IoT devices. So there could be a lot more robotic manufacturing and ease of manufacturing in their processes. So understanding our customers' value chain and where technology can then enhance their value chain is, I think, where we will begin. I would love to say that there is a consumer proposition for 5G, but I would be lying. With only 1% handset penetration of 5G, speed will not be that reason. And I think we've alluded to science fiction and what possibilities science fiction can bring us. In all honesty, the applications that were proliferized in the mid-2000s did not exist before the 3G auctions that took place in Western markets. And in some of the Western markets, 3G first launched in 2003 and 2004. There was no Facebook, there was no Skype, there was no YouTube. So the applications didn't exist, they came afterwards. So I'm a firm believer of build it and they will come. And I'm a firm believer of innovation finds a way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now it's time for last two questions. Let's welcome Bedras Pokrel, the CTO of Texati.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for the participation also. Most of the queries are already resolved, but I have some queries to first of all, to the Mohammad Adil sir. We have already discussed that 4G is launched in Nepal in 2018, but we are talking about the 5G in the recent time also. What is the recent status of 4G in the Nepal, and how can we ensure about everyone will get benefit of the 5G regardless of the geographical hunters? And our ARPU is sufficient to handle the 5G in the remote areas of the Nepal or the hilly area of the Nepal?
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Again, let me reiterate again on the fact that when we talked about 4G itself being a late entrant starting in 2018, still the amount of spectrum that has been released for 4G on number one end is not enough, obviously. And there's no point in keeping that spectrum, available with regulator, doing nothing and not benefiting any consumer. The second point that I'm highlighting about 4G itself is that second thing is the usage evolution as well. I think in my initial presentation, I've shared you the data of the actual usage that is happening across the users of Nepal. Around 60% of the people are doing, streamings on applications like YouTube, TikTok, on a small screen that requires otherwise a maximum resolution of 480p to 720p. And we all know doing this means the maximum speed that you need is 2 to 3 Mbps, which implies that in most of the cases, you'd be sufficiently handling all these requirements at this point of time now using 4G. But the challenge that we are seeing across is, and I think some of our colleagues have already talked about it, is that what are the added advantages of bringing 5G into the equation? First is it is a more cheaper source of data. And when people say cheaper source of data, I always put this statement with a caveat that this is only cheaper provided the entire ecosystem goes in the direction to offer this. For example, when 5G early adoptions happened and people started deploying 5G using different bands, in case of FWA, the handsets, the CPE was north of $1,000, whereas the handsets also were very high-end handsets that were costing more than $800 to $900. Now, in the perspective of our market, I mean, these two are very prohibitive entrants where 90% of the people are earning this much amount of money as a capita income for the entire year. So I think that's where what we are always saying is that first reaping the full benefits of 4G, and at the same time, seeing the possibility of putting 5G is the main concern. So as we speak as of now, the adoptions are happening, but really those adoptions are like, we talked about those in early stages as well, that You don't need a rocket science or a 5G to have a faster video, for example, on a smaller screen. It doesn't make any difference whether you do a 4K or a full HD screen, because your handsets does not support that particular thing itself. So I think the main evolution, if you talked about in perspective of Nepal, would be that we need to make sure affordability of deploying 4G more. As we said that, for example, 90% of the population is covered, but still some of those populations require low band spectrum, which is very scarce, and we are offering a pretty basic 4G service in those areas. So the other point is, if we have to go and densify using mid-band spectrums, we need to put 3 sites to serve the coverage of one single site, which is not feasible at all. So answering your question, 4G is something that would be a mass deployment coming for next 4 or 5 years. I don't think even if a deployment of 5G happens, with the affordability, with the prohibitive cost, with the inflation, with the exchange rates and everything happening around, 5G will be confined more into the pockets where more affordability, more use cases will be feasible for deploying those 5G. So it's a very long runway. Unfortunately, not a good statement I should give. I should be talking positive, but that's the fact around what is happening and what should happen in the near future. Hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, we should accept the bitter fact like easily, but like it's a bitter fact and we should accept it. Okay, like my next question to the Neeraj Bhusal sir. What are the advantages of the consumer in Nepal in terms of the faster internet speed and enhanced connectivity through the 5G technology of in the country? Like what we can expect, how the user will get the benefit, because like already there are so much population which is which is like back from the internet, but what they get the benefit if the 5G is deployed in the Nepal in the context of the user, in the context of faster internet speed and the internet connectivity?
So to answer, thank you for the question. But to answer you, so we are still struggling with a better 4G internet service. When you travel to the hilly areas of Nepal, it is hard for you to find the good internet connections. So not only 5G, but I think the major focus should be on deploying the better internet service like 4G, even the more stable 4G. So consumer have numerous benefit, like currently the many industries we are growing in Nepal is the fintech industry, the other platforms like the e-learning platforms and e-health services, apps like Hamra Patro and all, and the rise of apps like Ambition Guru and other apps. So they have been focusing on giving you like e-learning platforms and health service platform. So having a better connectivity definitely improves the lives, definitely will ease the life of the people, but just not 5G. So I think instead of jumping soon for 5G, the country like Nepal should be focusing more on a better internet connectivity, more affordable 4G service. Still we don't have like Nepal recently launched Volte, Nepal Telecom and Ancel, they both launched the Volte service in Nepal, but still they are not compatible with all the handsets available, so still we are struggling with the compatibility of the devices and all. So having better 5G or better 4G connection in Nepal will definitely enhance the industry. We have currently the TikTok and all social media platforms growing. Will be having the more better influencer marketing, and also so recently Nepal had been doing really great in the gaming industry. So if you will have a good internet connectivity with good latency and all, so it will definitely help our gaming community to grow up and represent Nepal in the global community. And also I think so Nepal should not just hurry up as Asar from Pakistan say that we should not mention a fixed date about 5G, but we should make a better policy. And also before jumping and before getting into 5G, so we should focus on the more stable and compatible 4G connections. So after that, obviously having a better 5G will definitely benefit all these industries in Nepal.
I would like to thank our speakers and media friends here and all audiences on the streaming platforms for joining us today. If you are interested to learn more about the exciting 5G developments around the world, we welcome you to follow our social channels and stay informed about our upcoming 5G talks. To our incredible guest speakers, It was an honor to have you join our event. We know your time is precious and we are immensely grateful that you were able to carve out some time with us. Goodbye, everyone. See you at our next talk. Let's stay connected.